All right, we're talking with Jackie Walorski, who is running in the 2nd District in Indiana, which is up the northeast or northwestern part of the state.
Yeah, northwest, kind of like north central,
Right,
South
right.
Bend area.
Another salamander, right?
Yeah, let me tell you. Yeah, we're in the area where there's the two largest cities would be South Bend and then Elkhart. Obviously, South Bend's the home of Notre Dame, and Elkhart is the home of the RV industry.
Well, I'm just over in Chicago.
Oh, good for you.
So I'm not too far from your district at all.
Yeah.
Well, what makes you want to run for? I mean, Congress is so intrusive into everyone's lives. To run for an office, so you're under a microscope. Your family's under a microscope. What makes you want to do this?
Well, I think to save...
Do this to yourself.
Well, I was in the Indiana House for 6 years, and I was in leadership, and we had, in a short 5-year period of time, we had really taken the economy in the state of Indiana from the bottom of the barrel to one of the top 5 in the country. And we did that by balancing the budget, by, knocking out thousands of bureaucratic positions, not raising taxes, living within our means, and then we concentrate on a pro-growth, pro-business policy. And in 5 years, we're in the top 5 now with a pro-business investment climate. And it's done a huge thing. We're the top of the nation for recruiting jobs and putting our people back to work. And I just had a talk with the governor one day, and I said, we have worked so hard in this state, and most of what we had done was done with a bipartisan legislature. Sometimes we were in control, sometimes we were in the minority, but everybody worked together, enough worked together to get these bills passed that we need to get passed. And I said to him one day, I said, if we don't stop this federal government, then they're going to steamroll our state, and everything we've just done is going to be completely torn down. And I got in the race. I got in the race in 2010. Came in 1% short. It was a wild national race, and decided that I definitely, wanted to finish what we started, which was opening the door to the people of the 2nd District to have access to their government. Because the problems that we have are undeniable. But I think we've made a huge mistake in this country by looking at these problems saying, oh my gosh, there's no solutions. And there are. Every one of these issues that we're dealing with are solvable. And, it's just about expending political will. And I think if we elect people who are willing to spend that political will and not be looking behind them constantly to see if they're going to be reelected, we can turn this nation around in a short amount of time as well. And that's my desire.
Well, you speak of your governor, Mitch Daniels, a great governor.
Best governor in the country.
Met him not long ago.
Right?
Met him not long ago on the set of the Cavuto show. I was on Fox's Cavuto show.
Yeah.
And he's been saying what all the other governors surrounding my state where I live in Illinois have been saying, thanks for giving us all of your business, because all of our businesses are fleeing Illinois and going to states like yours.
We have, the IEDC has big billboards up on I-94 saying, come to Indiana and do your business, because your tax rate is astronomical.
Oh yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah,
and I think that shows that the things that your state house and your Senate have undertaken, and your governor, are working.
It is working. And that's why I'm saying the model, obviously, the state of Indiana can't be isolated and compared to the United States of America, but the model can. And there's no other model out there that anybody's talking about. People are talking about problems, creating a fear factor just to move votes and to push people. But nobody's really out there talking about solutions. And we've just done it in our state. And that's why people wanted him to run for president, because they want a problem solver. That's my desire in Congress, is to cut through just the stymie between these two political parties, because right now there isn't a party that's going to save this nation. There is not an individual, no matter how great these guys are. All of them are running for president. We're beyond that. It's going to take, it's something so much bigger than who we are as Americans. It's going to take people to stand united and really say, as Americans, not as Republicans and Democrats and Independents, as Americans, we're going to stand together and bring this thing back under control. And yes, it works, because it's from the ground up. Change doesn't come from the top down. Real change in this country has always come from the grassroots, and that's where we're at. Educating people, bringing thousands of them together in one congressional district to make a difference.
Well, of course, as you go out and leave your state job, the state house, and it
I've
becomes
left the state house.
Well, what I'm saying is, when you leave that position and it's state issues, and state ideas, now we've stepped up into a whole new role. It's federal issues. It's issues that affect the whole country, not just your home district.
Right.
So, on that case, are you a one-note Johnny for just economics? Is that all you're interested in? Or do you have a good grasp of, say, national security?
I actually do.
Good.
I probably have a better grasp of foreign policy and national security than perhaps all but a few, probably more folks even in Indiana. And I've spoken about it, inside our Republican caucus here. And, I lived overseas in Europe and Eastern Europe for 4 years. We were there during 9/11. and changes your perspective forever when the airspace is closed and you have no idea
Oh,
if you're
right,
going to see your
right.
country again, not really knowing what was going on, especially being in a place like Romania. And it changes your perspective. And then I came back as a legislator. I've had a lot of training with a lot of different types of security forces around our country, knowing my interest in national security. And that's, I'm extremely interested in that. And I happen to think that the economic disaster that we find ourselves in has left our nation more vulnerable to outside attack than it ever has been in my entire life. And I think we're fooling ourselves as Americans if we think that push will never come to shove. And I think it will.
So what do you think about the evisceration of the federal, or of the military rather, budget that we're seeing? What are your thoughts on that?
Massive mistake. I was young during Jimmy Carter days, very young, but I remember the gas lights, rationing gas, and I remember the complete dissimulation of the military. And I remember then, later on, when Ronald Reagan was elected, and I remember the conversations about having to rebuild a military that had been devastated by a government. And I think when you see these articles taking, 10,000 infantry out of the Air Force and gutting budgets and putting our money in more of a computerized version, I get that. I get that we need high-tech computerization, but if we whittle this military down to the point that we can't bring it back because we can't economically even get on our own feet, then we're never going to have it back.
And we're already relying so much on our what we used to call back in days of yore the state militias. The National Guard units
absolutely.
are being really put upon with these changes.
I think even something as simple as what we're seeing right now between Israel and Iran, and we're seeing in the Strait of Hormuz, and sometimes Americans sit around and think, well, you know what, if it's over there and a state is contained over there, then it doesn't affect me. But just this little one situation between Iran and Israel certainly affects every American, because the minute Israel either does some kind of a preemptive strike or Iran does some kind of a strike, gas prices in this country are going to skyrocket. Our economy is so weak it'll never be able to withstand high gas prices. And on top of that, Wall Street will become even more unstable. So we're looking at real shaking, rattling, and rolling if things start flying over there between those two countries. And we have a president that has no foreign policy. We watched in just a short amount of time last year where the Muslim Brotherhood has pretty much positioned themselves to be in charge of 9 countries surrounding Israel. That concerns me. Mm-hmm. Very concerned.
Well, we're speaking of Israel. What kind of support do you have for Israel?
I am lock, stock, 100% behind Israel. Never a question, and never asked. I've never doubted asked a second time. Absolutely, it's a big issue.
Yeah.
It's going to play in this. It's going to play in this election because of the negligence of this president, because of the negligence of no foreign policy, and because of the uncertainty that he's created, whether this nation will stand with our best ally or whether we'll turn our back on it. And I think odds are that Israel doesn't trust him, and I'm not sure many of the American people.
And a lot of the questions are right now is, will Israel strike Iran? What would your thoughts? What if they did? What if Israel did strike Iran? What would your thoughts be on that as an American?
Well, I guess as an American right now, and not in the Congress, I think most Americans are leaning on the side of, yes, they're going to strike. They're totally surrounded. We helped a lot of those countries with American tax money put radical Islam in charge of these countries. We sent our tax money into places like Egypt to help remove Mubarak, and then here we are with our own tax money now. 19 of our Americans are being detained in Egypt. It's like, thank you very much. But the radical factions of those folks that took over these governments, a lot of them are connected to Hezbollah, Hamas, Muslim Brotherhood, that we helped make all these changes with. Very dangerous. Very, very dangerous. So I think it's an imminent situation. I don't think it's going to be months away. I think if you continue to squeeze the nation of Israel, and they're not sure that they have anybody standing with them, I think, they're a sovereign nation. They've got to make a decision what they have to do to survive.
Well, and then certainly one of the biggest problems that confronts Israel is the Palestinian question.
Right.
What do you feel on the right of return and the whole Palestinian issue?
The Palestinians don't have a country. I believe that they can have a peaceable solution. I think Israel has gone the gamut on trying to make that happen, and I think that a lot of people that watch these situations pretty much kind of know that it looks from just a human natural eye that Palestine doesn't necessarily, the Palestinians don't really want peace. They want to continue to be aggressive. And I think that when you have a commander-in-chief like we do that has been so weak and has weakened our nation around the world, I mean, what are we to these countries? Why wouldn't they continue to push it?
Right. Well, and then one last question.
Sure.
We've all been talking about this whole business with Obama and his confrontation with Catholics, which all comes down to, of course, the issue of abortion, more or less. But the two-part question is, how do you feel about abortion A, and how do you feel about this whole ability that Obama thinks he has to force his opinion on religious organizations?
Well, it's really two questions. One,
right.
I am absolutely pro-life, always have been, carried a lot of bills in the state of Indiana to defend women, to protect women, because Roe v. Wade is the law, but to make sure that we protect women, even in our state, that are having abortions. But I am as pro-life as they come. My name's on probably virtually every pro-life bill that came through our state. The second question is, this question of Obama is not a question of women's rights. It's a question of religious liberty and individuals deciding what their religious faiths are, and that they don't have to bend and bow to oppression from the government. And I think that it's really interesting that for as hard as this push has been, and for as hard as he's been taking his stand and not backing down, I think now that the news media has pretty much calculated the electorate for him, we see the new accommodation coming down today. He has no business, this government has no business running over anybody's constitutional rights, especially religious freedom and liberty that this country was founded upon. And I think that's just another example of the overreach of this federal government. This by far is the most egregious, but it is an issue of religious expression.
Well, we want to thank Jackie Walorski, candidate for the 2nd District in Indiana, and for giving us a few minutes.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Nice to meet you. All right, thanks.